Guess what? It was my birthday last week. And that monster book that you saw in the beginning is actually the great birthday present from my friends. It is a book on 75 years of history from the DC Comics. And I'm pretty sure that I'm the only person in my entire country that has something like that. So in order to mark this momentous occasion, I figured I'd do a rundown of my most powerful 25 movie memories. These are not my favorite movies that I've ever seen, but there are definitely movies that left an impression and just kind of shaped the way that I see the world and movies in general. I was not necessarily the brightest kid when I was growing up, as this movie memory will prove. I remember watching Born on the 4th of July and right afterwards Days of Thunder, and since the main character is played by Tom Cruise in both of them, I distinctly remember thinking, look, the guy from the first movie grew his legs back. Mommy, look, he turned out okay. He grew his legs back. I used to watch Pretty Woman a lot because I had it on VHS. It was one of the few movies that we had on VHS, and I used to watch it every other week. But when you're watching movies like that and you're like under 10 years old, there are a lot of things that you don't really get. Like, for instance, there's a scene when Vivian gives Richard Gere's character a blowjob, and I distinctly remember her head like going down and off screen, and I was thinking, what is there to kiss down there? What is she doing? Little did I know, I was born with a tooth, you see, and they say that that's a mark of genius. Now, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying I was born with a tooth. And I remember I was 6 years old and I was watching Aliens. And just so you know, I used to watch a lot of stuff that I wasn't supposed to when I was too young for it. But I think I turned out okay. Mostly. So I was watching Aliens, and when I used to watch horror movies, I hid under the table. So this afternoon I do my usual move, but this time I banged the upper part of my mouth on the table. And my tooth gets dislodged and falls off. And so I lose my mark of genius, and James Cameron still hasn't paid my dentist bill from that day. Star Wars. Now, with Star Wars, I have several movie memories. First of which is actually one of my oldest memories. I was 3 years old and I was watching Star Wars Return of the Jedi on VHS. Didn't understand a lick of it, but I still loved it. And then I remember it was New Year's Eve, and I think I was 8 years old, and my parents were away, and I was so happy because I got to stay late and watch movies, and there was a Star Wars marathon on a German cable TV show, and again, I didn't understand anything, but I still cried my eyes out, okay? It was still that powerful. The first movie that I ever saw in a movie theater with my brother when I was 8 years old was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. One of the most ecstatic moments in my life was when I figured out how to use the video recorder, and I inaugurated this with Terminator 2, which I taped one night, and then I spent the next day watching it like 4 times or something. Like most kids growing up in the 90s, obviously Disney played a very big role in my life. But kids in Romania would experience Disney movie a bit different from kids like in the US or the rest of the world, because we had one lady who used to dub all the movies that came from the US, and that lady was Irina Margareta Nistor. And I used to be so pissed off with this woman because she kept trying to dub over the singing in the Disney movies. The first movie that my brother ever rented on his own and we watched on our own was Speed. Gosh, Keanu Reeves was so pretty. The most depressing movie of my life? 101 Dalmatians. Because I went to see it with my mother on my birthday because there was nothing else to do. Just seeing a kids movie with my mother, kind of just sealing the fact that I have no friends and I'll probably grow up to be a lonely, bitter old woman. When Phantom Menace came out, I was in the middle of a huge Star Wars phase. And when it finally came out, I was so stressed and excited about it. I think I kind of knocked out my immune system because I got the hugest cold. And in the theater, I was sniffing my nose a lot and I was blowing my nose and everybody was shushing me, and I just tried to kind of just enjoy this movie, but I was so classic. A year or so after Phantom Menace came out, I think Matrix came out. And the thing about Matrix is that seeing this trailer on TV or this video from Marilyn Manson or something, and I thought, wow, this movie looks really cool. And I begged him and I begged him because my brother didn't know anything about Matrix coming out. And after we saw it, besides the fact that I was blown away by the movie itself, it was just this feeling of pride that, I'm the one who discovered Matrix, okay? I'm the one who dragged my brother to see it. So, maybe I got some skills too. In school, I was pretty much the class geek. I was the one who tried to study the hardest and tried to get a good grade. So I was never really, me and my classmates were never really friends. I was never kind of into that whole going out and smoking behind school thing. But I remember going to see American Pie on the last day of school with all my classmates. And it was a nice feeling because it was pretty much the only time in my life when I really felt like, they're okay and we're okay. The worst horror movie experience of my life was watching Event Horizon late at night. It's not such a creepy horror movie, but I was too afraid to go to sleep. I stayed up all night after watching Event Horizon because I thought that if I close my eyes and go to sleep, I'll have nightmares about that movie. Watching movies was pretty much a solitary experience growing up, except for maybe watching them with my brother. There were never really movie nights in the family. But if there is one movie that I remember that I have a special connection to is A Blast from the Past. It's this silly, quirky little Brendan Fraser movie that my father simply adores. He went through this phase and once when he watched it every other Saturday, and just sitting down and watching A Blast from the Past with my father is just a great experience for me because I never figured he'd be the kind. My father is into westerns and dramas and stuff like that, but the fact that we can both like this quirky little silly little movie is just, it's really something that I really appreciate. Fluke. Now, I don't really like a Christmas movie, but if there's one movie that I made an effort to watch every year for Christmas, it was Fluke with the talking dog and the great soundtrack, and I will make no apologies for it. You know that feeling you get when you find kind of like a jewel of a movie completely by accident and you're so happy for it? Waking Life was that movie for me because it was like midnight and I was just flipping through channels and this thing comes on with animation that like I never seen before and philosophy and like deep stuff, and it just blew my mind. For one night I literally was obsessed with Waking Life, and it's still one of my favorite Linklater movies. Spider-Man 2 for me was the most complete superhero movie ever, and I just remember having that feeling watching it like, hell yeah, Spider-Man, you stop that train. For a lesson in humility, when Revenge of the Sith was coming out, a friend of mine got invitations to an advanced screening for the press, and he invited me to it, and this was like 2 weeks before Revenge of the Sith was going to be released, and I bragged about this to everybody. I'm seeing Revenge of the Sith 2 weeks before you do, da 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 da, suckers. And I went to the theater, I took my seat, the movie started rolling, and I was like, oh my god, I'm seeing Revenge of the Sith, this is so awesome! 5 minutes into the screening, they pull the plug, they stop everything, and they say, okay, now everybody who has a press permit, ID or whatever can stay. Everybody who doesn't gets out. I was heartbroken. Okay, it was like, I can't believe this. I bragged to everybody that I was going to see this, and now there was no time to buy any more tickets because all the tickets were sold out, and I was going to see it like a week after its release date. So it was that was the most heartbreaking moment of my life. So we're up to my 20s, and while at this point I had a pretty critical view of movies and I had a critical eye when I was watching them, I still wasn't very aware of the whole distinction between commercial and indie. And this one day I catch this movie on HBO, Expiration Date, which is an indie movie, and I was so blown away by it because it was so quirky and interesting, and I had no idea that there were people making these kinds of movies, and I said, I want more. And in relation to that, last year I think I saw what will probably be my favorite romantic movie of all time. It's called Peter and Vandy, and it's another indie romantic comedy, but it's so perfect in its approach of kind of focusing on the little moments that build up a relationship. And after seeing it, I was so happy that there's at least somebody in this world making movies and telling love stories the way that I think represents my ideals and my values, and just it's that feeling of kind of you feel like you're on the same wavelength with another director and another team, another creative team, and it's a great feeling. The Cove. Last movie that gave me a really good, decent cry. I was never really into Harry Potter, but a couple of months ago I saw kind of like the first 3 movies of the Harry Potter series, which I've never seen. And I just got into this huge, well, not fight, but just this kind of aggressive discussion about Quidditch, because I kept saying that Quidditch makes no sense. This is what happens when women try to make up team sports. And there were all these people telling me, no, you don't understand, It makes perfect sense, it makes perfect sense to me. And it's just, Harry Potter made me feel like a fucking idiot. The reason why Ghost Rider merits a spot on this list is because it is the first movie that I ever got up the courage to do a video review for. Street Fighter. This is a very important movie. I think I saw it when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And the reason why this is such an important movie is not because it's good, but on the contrary, because it's so bad. It is so bad that after I saw it, I had a revelation. There can be bad movies. And for my 9-year-old self, this was like an epiphany, because up until that point, every movie that I saw was awesome. Movies were reality only 10 times better. And this revelation kind of marked the birth of the critic in me. But at the same time, I guess my innocence died that day.